Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? And welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, where we talk New Orleans Saints. My name is TJ Jones. Thanks for checking out the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Well, Who Dat Nation, you would think that it's the offseason and there wouldn't be much news coming out of Saints camp, but there is. The first story that we have to talk about is that the Cincinnati Bengals have requested to interview secondary coach Aaron Glenn for the defensive coordinator position with the Bengals. And this is huge news. Anybody that knows Aaron Glenn is the mastermind behind the great secondary play that we've been having for the last two seasons. These young cornerbacks have that swag. They have that cockiness about themselves. A lot of that has to do with Aaron Glenn. They say that Aaron Glenn, when he came to the New Orleans Saints organization, he allowed those secondary players to be themselves, to play loose, and, really just start to, play with that sauce, man. Y'all know how it is, man. When they're in practice or they're going through training camp, Aaron Glenn, if a cornerback or a safety, catch an interception, they want you to celebrate. They want you to spike it. They want you to talk trash. Aaron Glenn brought that type of culture to the Saints defense. So it's no surprise that teams want to look at Aaron Glenn. But according to sources, which I thought was weird, the New Orleans Saints said no. They said no, we would not allow Aaron Glenn to interview for the Cincinnati Bengals job. Now, if I was Aaron Glenn, I would look at this two ways. I would look at it one way. That would be that this team really wants me to stay because they value me as a defensive coach. But on the other hand, this could be a huge opportunity for me to really spread my wings, to really be able to go out here and do some different things defensively. And instead of just coaching one position, I would be over the whole defense, and that would open up opportunities in the future for me to possibly be a head coach of a football team. But I think that Aaron Glenn understands that the Saints really value him. The Saints should value him because, once again, he is a great coach. I remember Aaron Glenn when he was playing in the NFL. I remember when he was playing for the Jets back in the day, man. Aaron Glenn has always been a good player. Now, he's never been one of those shutdown corners. He reminds me a lot of former Saint Jabari Greer. No, Jabari Greer wasn't the fastest, but you can always count on Jabari Greer to make a good play, to not really screw up too much, and just do his job. That was Aaron Glenn, man. So it's no surprise that Aaron Glenn is getting coaching opportunities thrown at him left and right because he's a good coach. No doubt about it. The Saints, they're very fortunate to have him on their coaching staff. Now, Aaron Glenn, I don't know where he stands with this. Once again, I'm just basically just giving my opinion. He hasn't talked or even comment about if he wants to pursue the job or is he even looking for the job. But once again, the Saints said they're not going to let Aaron Glenn out of the door, and I don't blame him. Moving on, we got to talk a little bit about Antonio Brown. Now, we all know that Antonio Brown went on social media and he said that he would like to be traded from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And of course, this has led to a lot of speculation, a lot of wishful thinking. People that are fans of different teams want to see number 84 in their favorite team's uniform. Now, the New Orleans Saints, Who Dat Nation, we're no exception. I have seen so many people have emailed me, who have inboxed me, asking me the question, TJ, what do you think about Antonio Brown playing for the Saints? And I have to be 100% honest with you, Who Dat Nation. Would I like to see Antonio Brown as a New Orleans Saint? Yes. But do I think they need to pursue Antonio Brown? No, absolutely not. They do not, I repeat, do not need to pursue Antonio Brown. And I don't buy into this whole diva situation that's going on in the National Football League. I don't get into all that. I think the media kind of blows that out of proportion. I think that the media, they create this narrative about players and they just run with it. And of course, we're paying attention to it. We're watching these shows. We're reading these articles. And some of us, I ain't going to say all, but some of us buy into that. And when these players become free agents and they get on the open market, we're like, man, I don't want that guy to play for the team. Man, I want him to play for my team, mess up the chemistry in my locker room. I think that Antonio Brown, to be honest with you, I think he has some valid points about wanting to leave the Pittsburgh Steelers, because it seems to me that the Pittsburgh Steelers can't keep a star wide receiver. I mean, they can't. They cannot keep a star wide receiver, for the exception of Hines Ward. And then you got to go back in the day when I'm talking about James Stallworth and Lynn Swann. They have never had a true franchise wide receiver that has been on their team for a long period of time. It seems that the guys that can put up big numbers, the guys that can produce, they always leave. You look at Santonio Holmes. This guy wanted money. They didn't want to pay him. You think about Mike Wallace. This guy had a lot of talent, man. Had the speed, had the hands. Man, y'all know what it is, especially if you're from New Orleans. You know about Mike Wallace. He went to Old Perry Walker High School. He played for the Steelers. They didn't want to pay him. He left. Emmanuel Sanders, he played, man, had some good seasons with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He left, went to Denver. Now, I'm just wondering, man, what is really going on? And I think I have it. It seems that nobody wants to play with Ben Roethlisberger, man. I'm just being honest with you. It seems like there's an issue with Ben Roethlisberger and these wide receivers. It seems like maybe the franchise is catering too much to Big Ben, and these receivers want out. And Antonio Brown, the guy has been one of the best wide receivers, and a lot of people argue and say he is the best wide receiver in the National Football League. He's been putting up these big numbers for years, and now he wants out. But back to the original statement. Do I feel like the Saints need to try to pursue Antonio Brown? Absolutely not, man. Look, we have to stop focusing so much on the star power of players. Now, we can talk about how they can contribute to the team, but I don't feel like Antonio Brown would be a good mix with the New Orleans Saints. We all know how the Saints roll, right? If you open, Drew is going to throw you the ball. Don't matter if you're Tommy Lee Lewis, Jerry Lee Lewis, if you're Michael Thomas, if you're Robert Thomas, shouts out to my cousin, don't matter. If you're open, he is going to throw you the football. And we all know Antonio Brown, he loves his targets. You got to throw Antonio the ball 10 to 12 times a game. And I don't think that Antonio Brown would like that. I mean, Antonio Brown one game might have 12 catches for 150 yards. And then the next week he might have 2 targets for 27 yards. I don't think he wants to roll like that. I think that he wants to be the primary receiver. And I think that he wants to get his targets. And I think that he wants to be satisfied with the organization, with the quarterback he's playing with. And he wants to get some of the things he feels that he's not getting in Pittsburgh. I don't think that he would be a good fit. Now, what team I feel like Antonio should play for? I'm going to be honest with you. I would not be surprised if Antonio Brown played for the Buffalo Bills, or if he ends up going and playing, believe it or not, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That would not surprise me, man. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because he's not going to go to San Francisco, man. This team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, are not going to send him where he wants to go. That ain't happening. He said he wanted to play for the 49ers. You think they want to send him where he wants to go? Man, no way. So Antonio Brown, don't be surprised if you see him in a Buffalo Bills uniform or playing for the Jacksonville Jaguars, man, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, you know they probably going to be petty about this situation, man. They're going to try to trade him to a place that they probably feel he's not going to be able to produce like he once did with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is sad, man, because, you know, these players have all this star power, man. They have all this cachet, and they go out here, man, and they make a name for themselves. They probably come into the league with little to no fanfare at all, and they go out here and they do the best that they possibly can, man. They build themselves a brand. They go out here and they contribute, man, and teams basically – use them up, man. Chew them up and spit them out, man. It's the name of the game. But hopefully Antonio Brown can go to a place where he can produce and still be the star that he is. But speaking of wide receivers, I don't think that the Saints need to go out here and trade for a wide receiver. The Saints need to focus on trying to get a wide receiver in the NFL draft. Now, if there is a guy out there that can contribute to the New Orleans Saints, I feel like you need to look at the tight end position. Now, we can stay in Pittsburgh, but I don't think that Antonio Brown is the Steeler that we need to be looking at. We need to be paying attention to the tight end position with Jesse James, man. Now, Jesse James is a backup tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I feel like if he goes to the New Orleans Saints, I feel like he can contribute. I've seen some good things out of Jesse James. I think that it was just an issue when it comes to the playing time, man, because once again, he was the backup tight end. And if he goes to the New Orleans Saints, I feel like he has that rough and rugged type personality, man. He has that mind frame of a Pittsburgh Steelers player. And, you know, if he goes to the Saints, I think that he would not only help in the run game because he's a good run blocker, but he'll be able to catch the ball as well, man. He's about 6'6", 6'7", maybe like 250 pounds. I really like Jesse James, but the Saints don't need to look at Antonio Brown. That's way too much money, especially when in a couple of years you're going to have to pay Michael Thomas. And Michael Thomas, once again, I said this on the last podcast, he is going to be the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League when his contract comes up. There's no doubt about that. You want to keep people like Alvin Kamara. You want to keep people like Marshawn Lattimore, man. You want to keep these guys, Ryan Ramczyk. You want to keep these guys in your organization as long as possible. The Saints don't need to go out here and get a wide receiver that is asking for about $17 to $20 million a year. That's not a good investment. Now, if we're playing Madden, cool. You know, if you're playing Madden, cool, man. You could just turn the salary cap off and pick Michael Thomas on one side and then pick Antonio Brown on the other. There ain't no problem with that. But if you want to really look at things logically, I don't think that Antonio Brown is the answer for the New Orleans Saints. But, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing him in a Saints uniform, but I highly doubt that. But this has been the State of the Saints podcast. Check out the State of the Saints podcast on YouTube. Go to youtube.com. Subscribe to the State of the Saints podcast YouTube channel. Just search the State of the Saints podcast. Also, on social media, go to Facebook. Search the State of the Saints podcast, SOTS Podcast 8 on Twitter, and previous episodes are available on iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio.com. Till next time, all I have to say is, who dat?